Remember all that talk after the election about bringing down grocery prices?
Yeah, there was a lot of optimism about that.
It felt like things were going to change, you know? Like we were going to get some relief.
Definitely. It was a big part of the campaign.
But lately, it seems like that tune's changing a little bit.
It does, doesn't it?
So we're going to unpack that today, take a look at what's really going on with this whole grocery price thing.
Sounds good to me. It's a great example of how campaign promises sometimes run into the realities of, well, governing.
Exactly. So let's rewind back to those post-election days.
Right.
The president-elect, he was making a lot of promises about tackling these rising costs head on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we even have a clip.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, let's hear what he had to say.
This first part is from right after the election. We're going to drill, baby. Drill. We're going to get beer prices down.
Yeah.
I started using the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple a price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
Strong words.
And here's something he said just a few weeks ago.
Okay.
It's hard to bring things down once they're up. You know, it's very hard.
Whoa. Okay, that's a bit of a change, isn't it? It's almost like he's saying it's impossible before he even starts.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he's acknowledging the challenges involved.
So what was going on here?
Well, some analysts, like Malika Henderson, suggest there might not have actually been a solid plan to lower prices in the first place.
Interesting.
And she also points out that some of the solutions he talked about during the campaign, like tariffs, could actually end up making prices go up even more.
Because of inflation.
Exactly. It can be a bit of a tricky situation.
So it's easy to tap into that voter frustration about grocery prices. But coming up with solutions, and workable ones at that, that's a whole other ballgame.
It definitely is. And it makes you wonder what kind of economic situation the president-elect is actually walking into.
Yeah, like can he actually keep these promises? Or are they going to, just end up on the shelf?
That's the big question. And especially considering the current state of the economy, it's a valid one.
Right. And there's this thing called the Consumer Price Index, the CPI. It's basically like a way to measure how prices are changing over time.
For everyday stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Groceries, gas, all that.
Right. And it's gone up by 2.3% recently.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that means we're all paying more at the checkout.
It's noticeable, for sure.
Now, there's this other political analyst, Michael Singleton.
Okay.
He's been talking about this, too.
What's he saying?
He says he thinks the president-elect means, well, has good intentions. But he also highlights those economic hurdles that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like, those things are going to make it tough to keep those promises.
I see. So is he saying the president-elect was being dishonest?
Well, not exactly. It's more like he might have oversimplified things a little bit,
To make the solutions sound easier than they actually are.
Yeah, maybe to appeal to voters.
Yeah.
Campaigning and governing, they're two very different things.
Totally. So we've got Henderson saying there might not have been a real plan, and Singleton pointing out that those simple solutions could backfire.
Right. So where does that leave us, the voters, stuck with these rising prices, wondering what's going to happen?
It's a tough spot to be in, and that's where the insights from people like political strategist Kate Bedingfield come into play.
Okay, what's she saying?
She's really emphasizing this difference between campaigning and actually governing.
Like, it's easy to make promises when you're trying to get elected.
Exactly. But when it comes to actually running the country, things get a lot more complicated.
And she's saying that maybe the president just doesn't have as much control over prices as he made it sound like.
That's a key point she's making. She argues that his influence on things like fiscal policy, which can affect prices, is limited.
So what's that mean for the average person who's just trying to buy groceries without going broke?
Well, Bedingfield sees this whole situation as an opportunity for Democrats. They can hold the president-elect accountable for those rising prices.
And say that his policies are actually making things worse.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, will voters buy into that, or will they see it as just more political games?
That's the question. That's the thing, right? Will they see it as legit or just politics as usual? But, speaking of politics, things are getting pretty heated up on Capitol Hill right now.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for those Republican senators who are questioning the president-elect.
So any kind of pushback, even a little bit, and bam, they're facing the heat.
It seems that way. There's that thing with Senator Joni Ernst.
Yeah.
She had some concerns about one of the cabinet nominees.
Oh, right. The one with those questionable business ties.
Yeah. And after all that pressure from the Republican base, she apparently asked someone, how do I get out of this?
Whoa. How do I make this go away? That's pretty telling. What kind of pressure are they under?
Well, it's more than just, angry emails. Senator Lisa Murkowski had some pretty strong words about it.
Really?
She said, "My friend Joni Ernst, who is probably one of the more conservative, principled Republican leaders in the Senate right now, is being hung out to dry for not being good enough, and you're going to get primaried."
Oof. That's intense. Sounds like a threat almost.
Some analysts see it that way. Nia Malika Henderson, for example.
What does she say?
She argues that the president-elect is willing to, unleash his supporters on anyone who disagrees.
Wow. Even, threats of violence.
That's what she's suggesting.
Okay, so that's one take. Are others seeing it the same way?
Well, Michael Singleton has a bit of a different perspective.
Okay, what's he saying?
He points out how much support the president-elect has among Republican voters.
Right.
And he basically says senators need to either get on board or be upfront about their opposition. No in between.
So it's like, pick a side and stick to it.
Yeah, that's his take.
So even if it means, going against what you believe in.
It raises some questions about, the role of personal conscience in politics.
Yeah, where's the room for actual debate, for thoughtful disagreement?
Right. It's a good question. But how does all this pressure on Republican senators tie back to those broken promises we were talking about?
That's a good point.
Kate Bedingfield has an interesting take on that.
Okay, what's she thinking?
She thinks most of them will eventually just cave in.
Really? Just give in and go along with it?
She says self-preservation will win out.
So they're just trying to save their own political careers.
That seems to be her point.
Because, going against a president-elect could mean losing their next election.
Yeah, especially with how strong his base is.
So it's all these promises and the power plays and everyone trying to figure out how to survive. It's kind of messy.
It is, isn't it? And it really shows how complicated politics can be.
Yeah. With all this going on, with all this maneuvering, and, well, frankly, manipulation, where do we fit in? Do our voices even matter?
That's the big question, right? It's easy to feel like we're just pawns in this whole game.
Yeah, like we're just watching it all play out, powerless to do anything.
I get it. But I don't think that's entirely true. I think we do have power.
Okay, I'm listening. How do we make ourselves heard in all this noise? Yeah, it's easy to feel like, like we're just yelling into the void.
I hear you. It can feel like no one's listening.
So how do we make our voices matter in all this? Give me some hope here.
I think it starts with, with being informed.
Informed, okay.
We've got to go deeper than just the headlines.
Like really dig into the issues.
Yeah, exactly. Understand the details.
Yeah.
With those grocery prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we know it's actually causing those prices to go up, then we can actually start to figure out what might work to bring them down.
So we can evaluate the solutions that are being proposed.
And hold our leaders accountable too.
So it's about being more than just passive consumers of information.
Absolutely. We got to be critical, question things, get different perspectives.
Even perspectives we don't agree with.
Especially those.
But how do we do that? How do we have those conversations without it turning into a fight?
It's tough, but I think it comes down to empathy. Really listening to what the other person is saying.
Trying to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. Even if you don't agree, maybe you can find some common ground.
Okay, so we're informed, we're talking to each other. Now what?
Now we take action.
What kind of action?
All sorts. Vote.
Right, that's the big one.
Every election. Local, national, all of them. And talk to your representatives.
Let them know what we think.
Exactly. Support organizations you believe in.
And those grassroots movements, they can be powerful, right?
Yeah. When people come together, it can make a real difference.
So it's about more than just knowing what's going on. It's about, being a part of the solution.
Yeah. Getting involved in shaping our communities, our country.
It's been a fascinating look at all this. We started with broken promises about grocery prices.
And ended up talking about, everything from power dynamics to how to be better citizens.
Yeah. What's the key takeaway here? What do you want our listeners to remember?
For me, it's that our voices do matter, even when it feels like everything's just chaos. We're not just watching. We can actually make a difference
by being informed, by talking to each other, by taking action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how we can. That's how we can start to build a better future.
So that's our deep dive into the world of grocery prices, broken promises, and the power of us. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.